ruined relationships. I've hurt good women. I've turned my back on everybody that's ever been there for me. And not because I was selfish or because I was mean, but because I just never felt worthy. I mean,
This is the Leo Climaco Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Leo Climaco Podcast. I'm your host, Leo. Man, today's guest is someone that I literally met like 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
It was 4:30 in the morning. I was in my balcony smoking a joint, and I'm on Instagram, and I see a reel from this guy just spitting gems. Gems. Like, what he spoke about touched me deeply. He was talking about marijuana addiction and not being able to stop smoking. And I'm there, and I've been there many times. And that hit me so hard, I DM'd him. And I said, Marshall, I love what you're talking about. I love what you do. I got to get you on the pod. We got to meet. We got to collab. We got to do something. And 2 weeks later, I flew him down from Chicago to South Florida to get him on the pod. Marshall, thank you so much for being here, bro.
Absolutely. You kid me. It's truly an honor, man. For those of you guys who don't know the background story, I was literally in the gym, and I've been, at the time of shooting this podcast, have been really going through it. And I've spent the last 10 years of my life traveling around, speaking on stages, but specifically training speakers, training entrepreneurs how to get paid to speak, build brands, and build movements. But to say that I've crashed and burned hard over the last year of my life would be a massive understatement. So I just want to say, first off, thank you so incredibly much, because you don't understand what that message has meant to my life. It's been the spark that's rejuvenated something in me that I can tell is about to take off something big. And it's interesting how God works in that way. You know?
It really is.
You're sitting there thinking one thing, you know, smoking a joint on your balcony, and I'm sitting here going through it, and I get this message from this random guy, right? Random guy. And he's like, hey, I want to be on a podcast. And I'm like, yeah, I do podcasts all the time. Like, what, you had a Zoom link to book in? You're like, no, I only do it in person. I'm like, oh, you know, if I fly you down and put you up, will you go? And I'm like, yeah, like, let's do that.
Let's
and
fucking go.
It's interesting. I just hope that the people that are watching this can understand, when you truly get out of your own way and you just kind of surrender to what God wants for you, these things and these opportunities start to show up. And now here I am jamming with you. You got like a real tan, I got a fake tan, but we both look pretty good on here. So I'm excited to be here, man. It's truly an honor.
Thank you so much, man. Bro, you're fucking ripped.
Thanks, man. If
you really are.
If you saw me not that long ago, I was not that ripped at all. But I just turned 40, and in October. And
Happy belated.
Thank you very much. I had to take a look at my life, and what I realized, Leo, is that I was a man that no longer kept promises to himself, and I wasn't very good at keeping promises to other people. And so I just continued to let myself down in so many areas. And I heard a guy one time say, the most common thing in the world is a consistent man without results. And that spoke to me so deeply. And I was like, I've been working out consistently for 13 years, and look at my fat ass. And I just decided, I know now that it was God. I did not have a relationship with God before this. And so if you're listening to this podcast, the way that I'm about to talk, I was not talking like this like 3 months ago, but now I know it was God. But something inside of me told me that I've got to get serious about my daily process, because I recently just had everything in my life taken from me. And what I've realized in my first 40 years is that anything in this world can be taken from you like that. And I had to find something that couldn't. And so I found refuge in becoming the type of man that never misses. And I dialed into this daily process, and I thought, no matter what happens, you could take all of my money, all of my accolades, all of my clients, all of my friends, everything, but this is the one thing that nobody will ever be able to take from me. And it all was taken from me, but that one daily process. And now I've dialed in, and I got somebody that reached out that wants to sign me to a fitness contract for supplements.
That's awesome.
Yesterday. Yeah, and I'm not even a fitness influencer. So, gentlemen, get your butts in shape, man. I'm telling you, it changes the game.
It really does.
Yeah.
Why do you think God has put you on this path?
That's a good question. I've been through a lot. First off, I just want everybody to know, as you listen to this podcast, Marshall Gillen is nobody. Like, I am nobody. My life, to me, is not mine any longer. I have decided to lay down my life to God and Yahweh's will for me. So as I talk, I want to make clear, like, you guys, I'm not boasting about myself in any way, shape, or form. I have gone through what seems like hell in my first 40 years, and I never understood it. I mean, we can go into the thing, the dad leaving and the narcissistic stepfather who was, treating me like crap my whole life, to all the accolades I had in high school, full scholarships, football scholarships, and then everything just in my life by the time I was in my 20s centered around addiction. I just could never, I had this like thing, Leo, where it was like, no matter how much success I have, the people I want to care will never care. And so eventually and again, this is all subconscious, I didn't realize this, but eventually you get to achieving so much that just became like, what the fuck is the point of this? Like, nobody cares anyways. And so instead of trying to get the attention of my dad and my stepfather to love me and appreciate me and say, hey, son, I'm proud of you, I just decided to go the other way. And my identity really became rooted in how much I could drink, how much, cocaine I could do, how many joints I could smoke, and how I could just keep going. And then eventually when I was 23, I just was done. And so I took like 53 half bars of Xannies and a bottle of vodka and an 8-ball of Coke. And I was like, that's it. And it was crazy because as I was slipping away, I'm 23 years old at the time. I'm in San Diego, California, 2,100 miles away from home. And now that I've had an opportunity to be a parent, I can't even imagine what it would be like to get this call. But I called my mom and I told her what I did. And I'm slipping away and she's screaming on the phone, Marshall, wake up, wake up. And that was the last thing I remember. Woke up in La Jolla emergency room out in California shortly after that. God saved me somehow. But it's
Did she call 911?
She did. She called 911 and they like busted in the door. And I woke up immediately when I woke up in the emergency room. The first thought was initially like, oh my God, thank God that didn't work, which was immediately followed by, wow, you're even so worthless you can't kill yourself.
Wow.
So one thing I do.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Why'd you call your mom?
She's my best friend. She's she's my rock. She's the one that was always been there for me no matter what. And I knew that I just wanted to say goodbye to her. I just felt so bad because she, as a young man, when your mom is the one that's there, that's not that I ever took it for granted, but when you're chasing after your dad's love.
I'm really glad you caught that. We're going to go into that later.
Right. Oh, whoa.
You know what?
Tell me about it.
Grab it. Let's do it right now. Grab it. It was God
100%. He's like, dude,
shaking it.
100%.
Yeah. So this is here for a reason.
Okay.
You are the third person holding it.
Ooh.
Okay? So in Avengers Age of Ultron, when Captain America almost grabs Thor's hammer, and then in Endgame, when he actually grabs it, and Thor goes, I knew it, because Captain America is worthy.
That's crazy.
He's worthy.
Wow.
And he's valuable. I think God just shook that right now to
you
show you your worthiness.
That's
your
wild,
value.
Bro, that's a sign for sure.
Yes.
That's very, very cool.
Speak about that for a second. Speak about value and worthiness and how you found yours.
Yeah. Well, I just want to finish the
Go
loop,
for it.
the loop that we're in,
Yes.
because it is important.
100%.
Because if there's a man out there or a woman that's struggling, I want you guys to understand this. When I pulled the trigger to take my life, I had immediate regret. And so if anybody is struggling, like I've traveled the world speaking about attempted suicide, that's what my speaking career has been built on. And I just want somebody to know, like, that moment that I wanted to die, when I did it, I realized it wasn't that I wanted to die, I just didn't want to live my life anymore. And so the transformation is big, because what happened is when I woke up, I realized, oh my God, thank God that didn't work out.
Did you feel reborn?
I did not. I felt more unworthy than ever before. And so I didn't want to die anymore, but I actually got this terrible tattoo back then. It says, live fast, die fun, because I was like, I just want to die. And so I lived my life in a way that was going to make that happen.
Reckless.
100%. Fast forward a few years later, and this is where the transformation comes in. I had a very best friend of mine, Dustin, and long story short, long story longer, he was struggling, and he called me. He was calling me at the end of 2013, asking me for help. He's living in Omaha, Nebraska, with his family and stuff. And I just didn't know how to help him anymore, man. I was like, I couldn't help myself, you know? And finally, in January of 2014, he gives me a call, and I ignored it. And I listened to the voicemail, and it was him saying, hey, he was crying. He's like, yo, bro, I need to talk to you and get a chance. Call me back. All right, late. And I was like, okay, I'll call him tomorrow. Then I was like, oh, I'll call him next week. And then next week turned into a month. I got a call from his sister, at 4:30 in the morning, and she
No
said
fucking way.
Dustin took his life.
Oh my God.
And so in that moment,
I'm so sorry.
yeah, well, now so the transformation that you're asking for, and when did I realize that? I didn't have any kind of relationship with God or anything like that at all, but something inside of me told me that I had to tell that story. And so I set out on this mission with Dustin and I over the last decade of our life now to make sure that I can bring awareness to that story and understand that people, I've made a tagline, your mess is your message. I didn't make it. I got it from Tony Robbins years ago, but I've built my entire life around your mess is your message. And so people see me online, whether it's talking about, marijuana addiction or narcissism or whatever the thing is I'm talking about these days. I've always I don't know why God made me this way, but he's always just made me being the guy that's willing to go first. And so when I train my speakers, or really anybody, I tell them, like, everybody in the world is struggling with something.
Yeah.
And most of us are looking around like all scared, like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, just be the motherfucker that stands up and goes first. Just, hey, I'm Marshall and this is what's up. And so
were you always like this? No.
I was.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was in high school, I started a program that's still there today, I found out, called Blind, Building Lasting Impressions That Never Die. It was an anti-bullying program. And so we actually had our first retreat when I was a junior in high school, and kids from all over the state came, and we were doing this exercise, and it was like, step over the line if you've ever, and so it was all this stuff. Step over the line if you've done this and that. But finally, one of the teachers is like, step over the line if you struggle with drinking, which I was already struggling with drinking. And you can admit that when you're 16 or 17, like, you're going to get in trouble.
Right.
But I stepped over the line. And that was the first time that God showed me, like, this is the dude you are. So to answer the question that you asked me, why does God put me through this? I didn't know until literally just like 4 months ago that it always had to be this way. It always had to be this way because God wired me in a way to go first. And for whatever reason, he made me this little tiny, compact, fun-sized dude that can talk real good and, like, is energized, and it's magnetized people to me. And it's allowed me now over time, which is, we can talk about later, why I had to get completely sober. But now it's aligned me with who I am and this ability to go out and share these messages. At the time of talking to us right now, I just started posting about a new content about 73 days ago. And on the way over here, I was looking, we're at like 128 million views in the last 73 days.
That's incredible.
100 and,
you are reaching so many people.
Dude, it's crazy. It's like, who the fuck am I?
Right.
Like, why am I? Why?
Because you're worthy, bro.
Well, I appreciate that. And, but that's what I'm realizing. And so now that I look back, I'm like, oh, this is why you put me through all this crap, because you've been preparing me for what you prepared for me. And now here we are. I'm getting opportunities like this to come to South Florida, jetting around, drinking coconut water, hanging out, badass out with these cool people, and having God talk to me through these amazing props.
Bro, that was so crazy. That was so crazy, bro.
But I'm sure you get a lot. I'm sure it's the same thing for you, man. I mean, like, you have this podcast and studio going on. I'm sure you have an entire story behind
100%. Bro, dude. Our story is very, very similar.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm a high school dropout.
Okay.
I'm an immigrant. I was here illegally for 11 years. High school dropout, cocaine addict, womanizer. I've gone through it all. I've never gone as far as suicide, but I've gone as far as, doing 3 8-balls, driving 170 miles an hour, not giving a fuck.
Yeah, 100%.
Drinking was never my thing. It was always more cocaine and weed.
Yeah.
And that really, really took me on a spiral. And my coming to Jesus moment was, I was 17. And at the time, I was doing audio and visual, being a tech, running wires, putting TVs, shit like that. And I had a car that I just bought. It was a car that I used to transport. I was moving bricks at the time. And going with the wrong fucking crowd.
Been there.
Long story short, my car was in the shop. I couldn't get it. A friend of mine got the car, ran a stop sign, crashed the car, totaled it. Never saw him or the car ever again.
Wow.
That hit me so hard because that car to me was freedom. That car was my access to go anywhere. It gave me the liberty to be free. Yeah. And I felt my world crashing at that moment. And
especially as an immigrant. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure it's like, you finally get this freedom.
Exactly.
And then you're here and you realize, oh, fuck, I maybe just blew my chance.
100%.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It's crazy how those messages come through like that.
Yeah.
17 too, man.
17.
Like the awareness of a 17-year-old to be able to pick that up, though, is pretty incredible, man.
Yeah. At that moment, everything was unveiled, right? My parents found out about everything. Everything was open. At that point, I felt like my life was over. At 17, everything is so fucking dramatic.
Well, yeah, but
Right. So I slowly rebuilt myself. I got my GED, went back to college, majored in computer networking, began working in IT, became an IT director,
wow.
worked for billionaire families, doing as a one-man stop shop IT support for billionaire families. Did that for a bit. And then my wife and I eventually built a company. We own a therapy agency for kids with autism.
No way.
Yeah, in
That's
New
awesome.
York. We do in-home and in-school behavior modification.
Badass.
Yes. So now we are bringing it to Florida. Our goal in 2025 is to expand and grow within the Florida school districts and partner up with them. So my journey is of one that I really shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Everyone thought that I'd be in jail. Everyone. My friends, my parents, my sister. No one believed that I'd be who I am today.
Yeah.
And I think that's what drove me. I got to a point where I woke up, right? And I'm like, all right, I can't be that dude anymore, right? Like, all right, you had your fun, you explored, you saw that side of the world. Let's go see the other side now.
Wow. What a blessing.
Yeah.
Man, I've been there. I was a little bit older than you. I'm a 5-time college dropout though, so I'm in the room with some big brains there. I'm like, I tried 5 times. I didn't realize it wasn't working for me.
I only got my associates, so don't.
That's still awesome. That's still awesome. I tell kids nowadays though, I'm like, just learn a high income skill. I mean, if you want to go to college, I guess you can. But
Yeah.
times have changed a lot since I was younger. But it's the important thing I hope that people get from this conversation that we're having right now is that, like, whether you're 17 or 40, like, you're never too young.
No.
If you're listening to this, you're not too young to get started. And if you're an older guy, like, it's not too late.
It's
like,
not.
The time when God puts it in your head and on your heart to see the thing, to do the thing, to be the thing, it's meant for you at that time. And so, like, I'm always loving it. Well, we had a great conversation on Instagram the other day with
We had
you
a
and Julie.
great conversation.
I just love having these conversations and open up the dialogue.
That
with
hour
people.
flew by.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it really, really does.
Marshall, let's go in the past.
Okay.
I want to know about your childhood.
Yeah.
I want to know about that struggle you went through. Are you an only child?
I was for the first 10 years. Well, yes. No. See, everything about my fucking life is complicated. My dad had had a daughter. She was 10 years older than me. My parents were separated though, so I don't know that her sister,
Got it.
sister. Then I was born to my mom and my father. They got divorced, and then my dad got back with his former girl, had another daughter who's a few years younger than me, so two half sisters at this point who I don't know really. And then my mom and stepfather had a daughter who's 10 years younger than me. And, that's my sister. I mean, not the other two are not, but I grew
Right.
up with Bryn, but she's 10 years younger than me. But we didn't get along. Like, we were super estranged. And because my stepfather hated me, he poisoned her against me. So literally, she just turned 30 this year, and we literally just came back together a couple months ago over this thing that happened in my life. So, yeah, growing up, I was an only child for 10 years, and then I wasn't all of a sudden. And that's when this stuff really got rocky, is when she came into the picture. My stepfather had another child that was his, and then it was kind of like,
Peace
this
out.
guy.
Yeah.
And so I
What a douchebag, bro.
you just, again, and we can talk about whatever, but narcissism is a crazy thing. And at the time of shooting this podcast, it's a very trendy word. Oh, you didn't like me, or you treated me like shit. You're a narcissist. So much deeper than that.
Right.
And unless you've been through it, it's hard to really understand it. But yeah, it sucked. I mean, you're growing up, I've grown up on a farm in Illinois, and growing up in the early 90s, you don't really go inside and tell your mom that your dad's picking on you. And then you're growing up on a farm, and all these guys and hired hands are talking shit about you and making fun of you, and he's egging it on. And so as a little boy, not only did I have an absentee father who was an alcoholic, he chose alcohol over me. That's how it felt. But now I had this role model in my life who I wanted to be like, and I wanted his admiration and attention so bad, but he just would break me down every opportunity I could. And then not only that, like all the men. And so my entire life until just recently, I've struggled with masculine men, because my idea of what a masculine man should be is like these asshole dudes. And I couldn't relate to what a real masculine man looks like. And not only that, what does that even mean?
Right.
I didn't grow up with anybody that was like that. And so I tell people everything I've been through was definitely self-inflicted. Like I was running guns and drugs like in college, right? I was in East St. Louis, like with these dangerous people, but not because I grew up on the streets.
East St. Louis.
Because East St. Louis, yeah. But because I put myself there. Because I was searching for something I didn't know, and I thought that danger, that violence made me somebody. You know, I'm sure you understand, right?
100%.
And you're carrying around things and doing things.
You feel important. You feel special.
Right. It's significant.
Yes.
And Tony Robbins talks about the 6 basic human needs. And
you're part of a group.
Exactly. And in a society where we don't have a rite of passage for young men, it's like gangs.
I was going to say, that's why gangs are so popular. Exactly.
And it's like, that's all men are searching for, is this rite of passage. And so the ability for men like you and I to find our way through the mess and then to be able to create that space for other men is so important.
It's so important.
Yeah. It's like, again, though, you know, as men, I find that we don't really know how to ask for help. So it's so important that we have these conversations, which I keep coming back to all the time.
Something that we touched upon on our live that you quickly brought up was that us men, we don't tell each other enough how proud I am of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
It's true. I mean, I don't know about it. Well, everybody in this room is probably different, but those of you listening to this podcast, I mean, think about it. When's the last time that, not only like, when is the last time that somebody you wanted, that you loved, a man that you loved and respected, told you that he loved you or was proud of you? But more than that, it's like, when's the last time that you remember feeling worthy of somebody being proud of you? Because no matter what I accomplished, and we talked about this on the live, no matter what I accomplished, I never felt like it was always like a brief check, like a brief relief. Oh, that's done, and on to the next thing. You accomplish these amazing things, and it's like, well, okay, what's next? You know, it's not only that people
no time to smell the roses.
Yeah, because you don't even know how to. And even if you wanted to stop and do it, you've never felt worthy enough to actually do it, so you wouldn't dare stop and give yourself any credit. Because if you do, oh man, someone's gonna think I'm pretentious or cocky or all this stuff.
Right, all this bullshit.
All this bullshit, man. And so I find I love gassing people up. Like, that's my shit, dude, right? It's like everywhere I go, I'm always just very courteous. That courtesy is a massive thing to me. But at the gym, I see all these young cats all the time, and I look pretty good in the gym now. And I always stop and go out of my way. Like, I'll see some dude across the gym, you know, some young kid. He's been here for the 3rd day in a row, and I'm like, yo, what's up, Tristan? Like, hey, and they're like, oh, cool, you know. And I remember everybody's name, and not that it's about me, but it's like, when you can go through life like that and you can really pour into these young men every opportunity you have to understand that you literally are probably like one of the first people, the first men who can look at, and that's why it's so important to get jacked, be successful, have money, have a platform, and then to be able to use that to show people like, listen, it's not just about these things. It actually has nothing to do with this.
Right.
And I'll stop and have a conversation with you, and I'll hold space for you, and I'm going to gas you up every single day I see you, bro. And so now these kids are just like gathering to me, and I got, you know, I'm at this youth group in my church now, and, you know, we're building this plan making this plan to build this $4 million youth center, which is nuts, using my top paid speaker systems, which is crazy because I'm like, so again, that's why you had me learn how to build speaking and events and movements. And then God puts me in this spot to be able to help kids.
That's incredible.
It's been a blessing.
Where's that happening?
In Sterling, Illinois.
That's awesome.
New Life Lutheran. Shout out to my pastor, Drew, and the kids there at the youth group. But it's been really incredible. And again, man, I can't say it enough, and I'm sure you'd echo the same. If you're a man who feels like you have a big purpose in life and it's just not working out yet, I promise you, bro, keep going.
Yes.
Keep going, keep going. Do not lose the faith. When it starts raining harder, just keep going. I promise you, you have to go through the darkness to get to the light. And that's the number one thing that we don't understand in this society. And that's why it was so important for me to get sober. And that's why it was so important for me to get completely sober, eventually even kicking weed, which I don't have a problem with. And if somebody, I'm not going to tell a grown-ass man not to drink, but for me, I have to be sober because I have to represent what the other direction looks like to these young kids. I have to represent the other context of what's possible when you are clean and when you are sober. You can fall into alignment with what Yahweh has meant for you. And those are the only times I've ever been able to hear the message. And so it's my greatest affliction, we talked about this in life too, at this point though, is not getting to be a father yet. I can't ever not think about it. The relationship I was just in, I had an opportunity to be a father figure for 3 years to 2 young boys who called me dad. And it's hard now being away from them because I thought I would be their dad forever. And I don't know if I'll get a chance for them to come back to me one day. But as I said, everything happens for a reason. And now because I went through this thing with my father, because I went through this thing with my stepfather, because I know all the things not to do, and then because God blessed me the opportunity to be Joshua and Tristan's dad for a little bit, I now have the opportunity to pour into millions of not just young boys, but even grown-ass men who didn't have a father. And, you know, I wish I hadn't wasted my life on drinking and drugs and partying, that I could have been a dad, but I know that God always had to make it this way. And maybe someday I'll get an opportunity to be that husband and father that I so desperately want to be.
I have no doubt.
But if not, then it is what it is. I've given it's not just, I've got freaking Romans 12 tattooed on my face. I'm so about becoming a living sacrifice. It's like I've literally just laid down my life to whatever his will is for me. And if that will is to be a father to millions of fatherless kids, then so be it. I hope that it is to get to be the father to those 2 young boys at some point, and my own boys eventually too. But time will tell.
How and why is your faith so strong?
I don't know how it couldn't be at this point. And I am an emotional guy. I'm just so unworthy of what I get to, like, what am I fucking doing here, Leo? Like, what am I doing here, dude? I have tried to kill myself. I have done every wrong thing. I've ruined relationships. I've hurt good women. I've turned my back on everybody that's ever been there for me. And not because I was selfish or because I was mean, but because I just never felt worthy. I mean, I tried everything I fucking could to mess up my life, not consciously, but yes. And it's, and still here I am. And I look back after this last relationship I was in, and I just think, like, why do you love me so much, God? Like, why have you never forsaken me? And I don't know. I don't know the answer, but it moves me so much at this point that I'm like, there's nothing else I can do. You still have life in me. I have this gift of gab. You gave me the story with Dustin, and so it must mean something. And in a world where in 40 years I haven't been able to find any meaning, bro, I've saved not millions. I've saved thousands of lives. I've had millions of followers. Since 2014, I can't tell you how many messages I've gotten. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. You've saved my life. You've saved my marriage. You saved my relationship with my kids. If it wasn't for you, this, and I've never been able to feel any of it. I told you on the live,
yeah.
I can't even watch the testimonials. I couldn't even read those things. I'm like, okay, thank you, but like, that's good. Like, okay, bro. And now I'm sitting here and it all makes sense. And again, I'm like, why do you love me so much, God? And so now I'm like, that's all I want to talk about.
Because you're a great messenger.
I can't believe I'm a freaking God Jesus freak now.
You
And
are,
I mean that in the most, I can't believe it.
Me too.
I was
Same.
at the airport looking for a Bible
I
today.
saw your story.
You can't buy a Bible in O'Hare, just so you guys know. And O'Hare, if somebody's watching this, you should get some Bibles up in that piece. So I was like, I guess I'm just going to get a bunch of travel Bibles and start handing them out, dude. I'm that guy now. But truly, it's not about religion. It's nothing like that. I
agree.
Something inside of me so deeply just wants to serve. And for the first time in my life, I found so much meaning in serving. Like, I'm trying to find people in Fort Lauderdale tomorrow that want to go like hand out pizzas and stuff to the homeless, because I can't think of what else I want to do because I'm down here, because we don't have any homeless people in the little tiny town I live in, you know? But that's the kind of shit I like doing now. I've done all the things. I've done all the travel. I've made millions of dollars. I've made my clients millions of dollars. I've stood on the biggest stages with the biggest names. I've been in the rooms with actors and celebrities, and it just never fulfilled me. It's never fulfilled me as much as it does to see that young kid at the gym and dap him up and say, yo, bro, like the smile on his face that I remember his name. What are we talking about? He's excited that I remembered his name. How sad is that? I mean, like, I'm not to pick on anybody, be unkind. It's like, that's the society we live in today.
Right.
Young men are so disconnected from themselves and from anybody that gives a shit about them that it's like, that's all you have to do is become the greatest version of yourself and then be able to be that reflection back to the world. And so now it's like, I want to be sober. I want to be the best I can be, because the cleaner my reflection is, the better that I can help serve the people that God has sent me to serve.
Well, that's why he keeps picking you.
It's wild. And that's funny that you say that because all I've ever wanted to, and that's why I always say I just want to be picked. Like I think every man or every woman we just want to be picked.
And you were?
And when you pick yourself, though, I had to finally pick myself. That was the biggest thing. God kept picking me. I mean, he's been picking you too. Like just so he's picking you too, right? He picks you. He keeps telling you,
Yeah.
and then eventually you have to pick yourself.
Yes.
That love that you want from a woman or a man, you have to give it to yourself first. And I know that's so cliche, and we don't have time in this podcast to be like, what does that mean? But like,
No, we got plenty of time.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
but you know what I mean, though?
100%.
It's just so I did this first. I ran a narcissistic abuse recovery workshop last night for men, first one I've ever done, and I had these men from all over the world, man, like literally Australia, South Africa, Germany, UK, Florida, and they're just pouring their heart out, and they don't really even want anything besides just to be heard. And then you listen to them, you hear them, and they're like, "Well, I don't understand. Why do I miss her? Like, what am I supposed to do?" And so it's like, all right, stop. I always want to remind people, the feeling gets the blessing. The feeling gets the blessing. So the feeling that you're looking for is where your blessing's going to come through. But we're like searching, these men, for example, are searching. They're like, I don't understand why she doesn't love me. I don't understand why she did this to me. Why didn't she pick me? And I'm like, because, bro, you've never picked yourself. And then it hits them in a way when they're like, well, what does that mean? I'm like, that feeling that you want from a woman, you're supposed to give to yourself. But the reason you can't give it to yourself is because you constantly break promises to yourself, because you don't trust and you don't believe. And the second that you feel icky, you distract. Like I was never a big drinker. I just knew that drinking was the gateway to cocaine. I knew that if I went and had a lunch beer, then I'd be like, okay, I'm actually going to call up my dealer. And then I'm, nose deep in a bag. And so whether it's drinking, drugs, gambling, working out, building businesses, promiscuous sex, like it doesn't matter. Anything can be a distraction. And until a man is willing to sit down in his pain and just sit with it, just sit there. Like I was in Montana for a year and a half in a cabin alone in 2020, crying basically every day, just purging this pain that I didn't even realize I had. Until one day the tears dried up and I was like, oh, okay, well now what's the message? And a little bit of a message came through. And what I found out over the last year of my life is that the cleaner I can make this vessel, the more the message, whatever that is, comes in. Like I'm on the flight today. This is a great example. And God always does these amazing things. I wake up yesterday, I open Instagram, and there's a Bible verse from somebody I follow. It's 1 Corinthians 13. And basically it just says, it doesn't matter how good your work is, what your body is, what you worship. If you don't love, if you don't really truly love and you allow yourself to be irritable, it's all for nothing. Now, I've been super irritable in my real life lately. People that come against me, people that want to discredit what I've been through, say I'm attention seeking. And that's carried over into like this lady who took my mom's parking spot the other day. And I'm like,
Fight.
It's crazy. And so I wake up and all of a sudden it's like, bam, oh, damn, I need to choose love. So here I am on this flight down here. And maybe it's because I was 36,000 feet in the air, but I got a new message that I've never gotten before, and something in a way that's so clear about loving my enemies and loving the people that hurt me, that I posted. You probably saw when I got here, I was like, oh, I'm a completely new man when I got off that flight, and I will forever be, because I understand something so much more intimately and different than I never understood before. And where'd that thought come from? Like,
Right.
People don't like, do we actually ever stop and think about like, where do your thoughts come from?
Straight downloads.
Straight downloads. And the cleaner that this vessel is, the more alignment I'm in, the more downloads I get.
Right.
And the better, the faster the following grows, the more opportunities like this happen. Who knows who's going to see this podcast? Somebody's going to be like, I want that dude on my show, or come do this. And I'll be like, all right, like here I am to seek to serve. And again, it's not about me. It's just about, I've finally let God use me. And I'm pretty excited to see what happens next.
Something I learned about myself with my therapist, right? She revealed to me why I chose cocaine.
Why are we here? Tell me.
Yeah. So it has to do with worthiness. Cocaine makes you feel like Superman. It makes you feel powerful. It makes you feel like you're somebody. It makes you feel worthy.
Interesting.
And I lacked that growing up.
Yeah.
I was always skinny. I was always made fun of. I was never a macho guy. And I thought I had to become this macho guy. So I did cocaine to become this macho guy.
Interesting. I see.
So she told me that cocaine really wasn't my issue. It actually helped me. It showed me how I can be a man. Okay. The issue was I abused it. Mm-hmm. Right? I took it too far.
Yep.
I swam in that bitch.
Yeah, hell yeah.
You know?
I know.
Instead of just taking the message that it was there to give me and moving on.
Yeah.
So I feel like you and I share that.
You know, the thing for me that the reason I used cocaine is, and I know now, is because it was the only time I could ever feel present. Mm. And so for me, it's like I'm diagnosed ADHD.
Same.
And so, not surprised that we clicked so well. That's why I realized I was using so much cocaine, is because it was the only time I could ever, I mean, yeah, I was clucking in the kitchen until whatever, right, with my buddies, or you're just kind of locked in the coke dungeon doing your thing.
Teeth grinding.
Yeah. Oh, no, right, you're coming up with the best ideas that you're all going to do. But I in a world where I never learned how to just be present, because I was always living in the past or living in the future, never feeling safe in the present, which you comes from trauma, right?
Yep.
And so I didn't know how to be in the present. I didn't know how to be. I didn't know how to be in my body. I didn't understand how to do that. And so that's what cocaine gave to me, is that when I did it, I was at least here. And so it was like a relief for a moment, just to put it all down. And I didn't know that until, much later. But that was the thing for me with the cocaine. And obviously, if you have ADHD, dopamine doesn't work right in your brain.
Right.
And so those hits of dopamine, until the party runs out and you just can't even manufacture it anymore, right? And it's just like, okay, the first one's good, but then that's it. I'm chasing a high. And my whole life was chasing the high.
And the sun comes up and you feel like shit.
Bro, when you fucking walk outside and the birds are chirping.
Oh my God. And you feel like a biggest piece of shit.
I'm like, God damn, here we are again, dude. Yeah. And that was the thing, is that, so what does an addict look like, right? Because when I started actually making my money was when I had the biggest coke addiction. I'm literally traveling around the world, speaking on stages, talking about attempted suicide and all this thing. And I am a full-blown addict, and nobody would have ever guessed. And I'm living this secret life with my coke friends who all know, but then I'm out being top paid speaker everywhere else.
Wow.
And so when you really walk out and it's like that, you're just thinking to yourself, I am such a piece of shit.
Do you still have those friends?
No.
I knew that.
And not because we're not even the same frequency.
Right.
So we can't even exist.
And you were sabotaging yourself by being there.
Okay. So that's the thing that we really need to touch on, is that because my paradigm subconsciously was I'm unworthy, I subconsciously find things to reinforce that.
Right.
And so many men and people in general, men do not realize that. And that's what I'm trying to tell the men last night in the workshop. The reason you got into this narcissistic relationship is because you subconsciously need to justify how unworthy you are of love, and that you only get abandoned. And so we continually... Our thoughts and our internal thoughts and feelings are a direct reflection of our external reality, right? Like thoughts become things, double slit experiment, quantum physics, all the things. So if in this realm, every single thing is energy, and if I am the universe, I don't even know if any of this is real, because when I die, it all disappears anyway. So that's why I'm always trying to slow people down and say, listen, if you can learn how to be present and let it go, your reality is literally a reflection blueprint of exactly how you feel on the inside.
Yes.
It's telling you exactly what to do and what not to do. And I didn't realize that until, again, I was much older, and I ruined everything. And literally on June 24th of this year, when I finally had literally everything taken from me, I was brought to my knees, and the only thing that was left was God. And I didn't know that until then. And now I know. And I'm like, oh, great. I'm Moses coming out of the desert, or out of the desert, man. I'm like, let's go. Wow. And I feel so upborn and so alive for the first time in my life that I don't know what's happening next, but for the first time, I'm present. I'm not worried about the future. I'm not lamenting over the past. I'm just like, yo, I'm here with Leo in his great shoes in this whole awesome studio. And I'm like, what's up, dude? Like, here we go. Let's have a conversation.
Let's fucking go. Yeah. Let's go deep into narcissistic women.
Okay.
Because usually when that word is brought up, it's men.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so first off, let's talk about narcissism in general.
Yeah.
I don't want to be and this is important. I'm glad I'm on a podcast talking about this. I specifically talk about female narcissists on my page, on my pages. One is because that's my experience. Two is I found out that there's literally no other man in the world talking about it right now, publicly, like I am, which I didn't know when I started. But I just want to say is that, like, I hope that if any women are watching this, I do not mean to dismiss you. My mother suffered at the hands of a narcissist still to this day. She's, in her late 60s, and I can't even have a conversation with her about what I'm doing because it's so triggering to her. And so I want to just make sure that women know, like, we're not here to dismiss anything or invalidate what you've been through at all. So let's talk about narcissism for a second, then we can get into the female thing. If you look up narcissism in the dictionary, narcissism is a personality trait. It's a personality style. Narcissism exists on a spectrum.
Okay.
So you can have healthy narcissism. Like you and I are have healthy narcissism in the fact, like, we're overconfident. You can't beat us. We're going to win no matter what.
Right.
Well, I'm not a narcissist. My heart bleeds for people. I'm overly empathetic.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that we need to understand. The second thing is, on my pages and anywhere else, I don't talk about cluster B disorders because I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not a clinician. I'm not a psychiatrist. None of that.
Right.
So it's important that I always reference that narcissistic personality disorder is a cluster B disorder, and you have to be diagnosed with that. And most narcissistic personality disorder people will never be diagnosed with it because
they're not going to go to a doctor.
They don't go to a doctor. Okay, so that being said,
because they think too highly of themselves.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Although I do say Nick Cannon literally just came out like a week or so ago that he was diagnosed with NPD, or narcissistic personality disorder, which is a big step forward for people to be able to.
Nick Cannon, really?
Nick Cannon, yeah.
Wow.
And so it's it's there. God's working.
I could explain the 12, 13 children.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And so narcissism. So the way that it works is I like to tell these men, dude, there are so many millions of men across the globe that are being abused, whether it's physically, emotionally, and or psychologically, and men can't talk about that.
Because they're embarrassed as fuck.
And there's no safe space for this. Yeah. There's no safe space for them to do that. Like, when I made my first post on September 1st about narcissism, I was like, I actually put it up, and it got like 10,000 views in like an hour. What? Which is way more than I've ever gotten in anything. I got so scared I took it down.
Really?
I was like, oh my God, I don't want my ex to see that. Then I put it back up. It got like another 5,000 views. Then I took it down. And then I denied it for 10 days, basically denied God for 10 days. And then eventually he was like, bro, I started going to therapy. My therapist is like, I think that she might have been narcissistic. And then I just realized I had to start talking about this. So real quick, and I'll say this, over the course of my 3-year relationship, I went to 3 different therapists because I knew in month 6 of this last relationship that I knew month 6, dude. But I was so codependent, which I didn't know at the time. I had anxious attachment style, but I didn't know at the time. That I just kept letting this woman talk me back into coming back. Oh, you're not a real man. This is what you do. Every man walks out. And this is just like a little tiny scratch of the surface. But the point of it is that I realized that.
Did she get off on that?
Yeah, narcissists, they hardcore do. So we would get in these big, massive blowout fights over something. It could be the dumbest thing. And then she'd want to go have sex. And I would always be like, you're like the dude and I'm like the chick. And I don't mean to do that dismissively, but like, I'm like, now I learn is that, yeah, it actually turns them on because it's a control and power. And that's like the same story for all of them. And it's not just men or women. Wow. All narcissists are the same. They're so unoriginal. They all have the same playbook. And so what I'm trying to tell these men is like, they come and they follow my page and they want to, is she a narcissist? And I'm like, at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, dude, because at the end of the day, what matters is, are you in a toxic relationship? Yes or no? Yes, I am. Are you a toxic person? No, I am not. Okay, then the reality is that this is happening for you to be able to choose yourself.
Right.
Now, we know that we live in a world of duality. It's a world of contrast. It's an energetic universe. You cannot have yin without yang.
Correct.
So I'm always of the school of thought that everything that happens is a man's fault. I believe that that's just how the masculine role needs to be, is assumed. And so what I say when I say that to people that want to be triggered by that, it's like, again, I knew in month 6 that she wasn't for me, right? But I made the choice to stay. So what you don't change, you choose. What you allow, you accept. And in that regard, whether she's narcissistic or not, it does not matter, because after month 6, when I knew better, I kept choosing her because I couldn't choose myself. And so
were you choosing her or the boys?
So the boys, and I didn't leave because of them. And I tried to protect them as much as I could forever. And that's the part that hurts my heart the most, is that in this last year, she's like, they would call me dad, and we just, like, their dad has passed away. He OD'd when he was 36, which was like 8 years ago. and I probably legally should watch what I say, but I have my thoughts of why he actually did that.
Oh, wow.
And because, dude, so the last 6 weeks of my relationship, out of 3 years, get new house, new car, new gym, all for her, right? Building her business. I would have like $100,000 weekends with Top 8 Speaker, thinking she was going to be like, oh, and we would fight more than anytime I had success. She would be so mad at me, and it was like being with my stepfather. I couldn't understand it.
She didn't want you above her.
She didn't want me above her, and because narcissists. The reason that narcissists, so female narcissists especially, they don't choose weak dudes. Okay, the dudes that they choose, they innately are protectors and providers. And the female narcissist chooses that on purpose because they know they can weaponize it against the man. And that's how she's able to control you. Because the empathetic person, I can walk in a room and light it up. We can make an instant connection. Narcissists can't do that. They're void of this. This is a really important thing I do want to talk about, is that so childhood trauma happens, and I'm not going to obviously air her stuff because there's a part of me that loves part of her, right? But
as a human.
Yes. But the way that narcissists usually get made, almost 100% of narcissists, is that something terrible happens to them at childhood. So if I'm thinking back to what happened to her, I would fucking kill somebody. I mean, 10 times over. Every time. And it's hard because as an empathic man, that's why we stay connected, because you can so deeply relate to what they've been through.
Yeah.
And you just want to choose them because you want them to know that they're worthy of love, when in reality, you want that for yourself. And so narcissistic people, or childhood trauma in general, you're usually going to go one way or the other. You're going to either go towards a narcissist, which is you're so broke, so fractured, and so ashamed of that little girl that I can never even look at her again. I can never revisit her again. And so anything that reflects that back to me. So if Marshall is, being too vulnerable and he opens up my vulnerability and I'm loving him, and all of a sudden I realize, holy shit, what am I doing? Now, it happens like that.
That's
and once
crazy.
once it happens, so in the narcissistic, what happens in this narcissistic process is you have this love bombing phase in the beginning of a relationship, or the idealization phase, when they find you and they think you're the bee's knees, dude. Like
Honeymoon phase, right?
Yeah. Well, yes, but it's even deeper than that, because they're thinking, oh my God, I finally found somebody who's going to make me safe. I finally got it. Oh my God, thank you. And they're head over heels. But then it could be one thing, one tiny thing that fractures it forever. And now all of a sudden you are public enemy number one, and they feel like it's their responsibility to teach you a lesson for hurting them. So childhood trauma, that's how narcissists are made. But also childhood trauma, you could go the other way, which you become an empath, which means that for your survival, you learn how to read a room you just know you can read a room instantly, because your survival depends on it, being able to understand the narcissistic parent or the abuser, so you can stay safe. So that's how it happens. Now, when we go back to the world of duality and contrast, I'm trying to I want people to understand is that as an unhealed empath, you are just as toxic as the narcissist. A narcissist abuses people. A narcissist abuses people to get what they want. An empath abuses themselves to get what they want. So if I am staying with my ex, because I want to prove to her that I love her, well, now all of a sudden my behavior becomes just as toxic reflection, but for totally opposite reasons.
Right.
And so what happens with these men, and anybody that gets out of a narcissistic relationship, the number one question, if you're watching this, you already know what the number one question is: am I the narcissist? 100% of the time, that's what people want to know. And then it's, why did she do this? But am I the narcissist? And the reason that is because that toxic empathy inside of you, it reflects the traits of what the narcissist is telling you you are.
Let me ask you a question. If you're asking yourself that question, then you're not, right? Because
almost 100% of the time.
Right.
I mean, that's like the ultimate litmus test.
Right.
People go like,
one wouldn't.
You would never. You would never ask yourself. And then the second question to ask yourself, because that's not good enough. I know from experience, especially if you're dudes like us.
Right.
And actually there's a bunch of, so I have like famous actors and famous athletes that like are messaging me and talk to me. They want to know the story. And so these people, these types of people, I just only say that not to name, would never name drop. I only say that to let everybody know that this happens to like
all
the
levels.
most successwent people.
Yeah. Especially the most successful people.
Especially them, dude.
Yeah.
And so if you're like us, again, I went to 3 therapists. They kept telling me over the 3 years that it's probably her, not you. And I was like, nope, you're wrong. It's definitely me. She told me it's me. She's awesome. I love the boys. And so I switched therapists 3 different times.
Wow.
We went to couples therapy, and literally, I don't know if I shouldn't be mad at him, but I think back, I'm like, how did you not fucking see this, dude? But the therapist would be crying over watching me cry because he could see how deeply I was hurt, but still
Couldn't do shit about it.
Couldn't do shit about it. So I say that to say, if you think you're the narcissist and you're like me telling you, hey, if you're asking a question, you're not, that's not good enough. So the other thing I would ask you is that, are you a bully? Like, do you just straight up bully people just to bully them? And if you don't, you're definitely not a narcissist, because that's why, and I didn't know, I started an anti-bullying program when I was in junior high or in high school.
Yeah.
And that's why I always just hated bullies. I've always been the guy that's going to stand up. I don't care if you're a stranger. I don't care where I'm at. Nobody gets to pick on somebody that can't defend themselves.
I agree.
And I've always been like that. And now I know why. And so that's the other question is like, okay, if you're asking the question of you're a narcissist, you're not. But if you can answer say that you're not a bully, then you're definitely probably not a narcissist. Now, why do people feel like they're a narcissist then? Well, dude, the stories are all the same. I'm telling you millions of stories, right? I didn't know. I thought I was a narcissist because she told me I was. I had never even heard the term narcissist or gaslighting until she started telling me that. I went and bought a college level book on it. Oh my God, knowing now, when it showed up in the mail, she was probably like, you motherfucker. But so I'm like reading for the last year, like, okay, trying to figure all this out, you know? And she's just going in on me. And once so you have the love bombing phase, but once the fracture happens, you move into what's called the devaluation phase. Now, the devaluation phase runs...
Real quick.
Yeah.
She underestimated you.
Oh, bro.
Every single step of the way.
100%. And she should have known better knowing me, dude.
She thought that she was going to be able to call you a narcissist and you not go dig up what the fuck she's talking about.
I tried to tell her when we got together. I'm like, did you not fucking know who you're like? I'm like the super impact girl. Like, you didn't have to be this way,
what?
Right? And so right up to, and even now,
that was her biggest mistake.
100%.
Was underestimating you.
Well, I always thought like she was like the super narc, like a super shredder in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle 2. Dating myself. Yeah, you know, and so like you move into this devaluation phase, and what that means is that I'm going to say she, that's not my ex, but she too.
Right.
They're purposely trying to break you down, but little by little. That's why the gaslighting is so crazy, because they can't do it all at once, or you might leave and tell on them. So you have these little breadcrumbing moments of where they return to the love bombing phase,
it's crazy.
but then they always go back to the devaluation phase, which is belittling and demeaning, and they do it in front of the kids. Then they weaponize the kids against you, and then you know the kids are starting to feel the fact that they don't want to be scared of their mom, so they have to agree with her and all these things. And so in the devaluation phase is when you really start to the trauma bond starts to form.
Right.
So the trauma bond, for people that don't understand, your brain starts to have a chemical, physical dependency on them. You become trauma bonded to them. So you're literally an addict. Okay. So that's why so many addicts fall into these relationships. So now you're trauma bonding to the narcissist, but this is starting to cause cognitive dissonance. And so cognitive dissonance, for the people who don't know, it basically means that you believe 2 things are true at once. You believe, oh my God, she loves me because she told me that I'm the best thing in the world. But also she hates me because she tells me she does. And because you can't figure out which is true, your brain is basically buffering. And the whole time you can't tell anybody in the outside world what's happening. You're trying to keep up this facade. You're thinking there's something wrong with me because she's constantly telling you that. And then it all starts to fall apart. But once you really, okay, so we got to stop 1 second. The devaluation phase runs congruently with what's called a smear campaign. And the smear campaign is systematically and strategically deployed by a narcissist.
Propaganda, right?
Yeah, so the outside world will know that you're the abuser. So if you ever do leave, or you ever try to tell them, they'll be like, well, you mean Marshall's the abuser? Like, he used to yell at me. But they do this so when you do leave, they can immediately move on to their next narcissistic supply publicly without being judged. So for example, 3 years in this relationship, I'm Mr. Right, I'm the dad, all the things. I'm gone for 5 weeks, and she's out on a boat on Labor Day with our kids and this new guy and his kids all over social media. Completely destabilizing. That's when I knew. That was actually the moment that I knew. So thank God she stole that $2,000 from your business clients, because I know what's up, girl, but we won't talk about that. Thank God you did that. And so she took that money, got a boat, and that's what literally blew this whole entire thing open. And so for the men or the women too that are watching this, that's what makes it so hard to leave, is because when you do go to leave, mine was such a blessing. It was so easy. I just left. I left the state, no marriage, no kids. But there are dudes all over the world who are police reports, falsified police reports. This is like the most common thing.
Wow.
Kids are taken from them. And what happens is they will a lot of times record you, or they'll document you reacting to them. So they push you until you break. And then what happens is what's called reactive abuse. Now, this is why people trip and they think they're the narcissist, because the narcissist, one, has told you you're a narcissist. You've never heard of it before.
Right.
They tell you you're gaslighting. You've never heard of it before. And then when you snap finally, they go, you see, I told you. And then you're like, oh my God, because it's not you. Wow. So that's called reactive abuse. And really what happens is...
What a fuckery.
It's fuckery, dude. You get these things called...
It's like a witch spell.
And so my ex calls herself a witch. And I found out that almost all these guys I've talked to, same with their women. They're like, oh, we're witchy. Anyways, you get these narcissistic fleas. You get these narcissistic fleas, and that's what it's called when you start to take on their traits. And that's what's so destabilizing about the whole thing. And
I feel like it's worse for these men to leave also, because society puts that pressure.
Bro. And then when you leave, so all of my friends chose her. All of my friends chose her.
Wow.
All of them. All of my clients chose her. And that's the only reason. I had nothing left. My personal, so the last 6 weeks, finish the story up. The last 6 weeks, I'm living in the basement of our house on a mattress on the floor. My boys aren't talking to me. She's not talking to me. She hasn't talked to me in 2 months. And I don't mean to be dramatic, but I'm sitting there staring at my cig. Like, I'm just going to put this thing in my mouth and I'm going to be 40. My personal brand is burnt up. I've lost all of my money and all of my clients. All of my friends hate me and think that I'm a crazy asshole. And this woman, because I didn't know at the time, I still didn't know. I still thought I was the problem. And I gave this woman everything, and she's right. I'm a fucking loser. And I thought all there was left to do is just fuck this. Like, what else is there to do? And so in a last ditch effort, because narcissists isolate you from your family on purpose, I wasn't allowed to call my mom anymore because I was made to think I was a sissy boy, a little mama's boy who was spoiled. So I hadn't talked to my mom in a year.
The mind fuck.
So I'm sitting there one night finally, and it's 3 days before our youngest son's birthday. And I called my mom up and I told her what was going on. And I didn't want to tell my mom, because what if I was wrong? I didn't want mom to hate her even more.
Right.
So I call up my mom, and she calls my sister, who's a 30-year-old farm girl. She has 3 kids of her own now. And don't know my sister that. I know her, but we don't talk because my stepdad made her hate me. And she just said, I'm coming to get you. And so she drove her pickup truck all the way out to Montana from Illinois, packed up all my stuff, and drove me away. And she literally, Bryn, saved my life. And if it wasn't for her coming to get me, I probably would have taken it. Now, I know that God had a plan for me, but that's what happens. These men start to suffer so bad that they know that nobody's going to believe them. And so for me to be able to share this message online, that's why it's growing so fast, because for the first time, millions of men across the world are going, oh my God, thank you. Thank you for standing up and saying that. So have I always been the person that crossed the line and went first? It's always been me. But it never mattered, and I never felt worthy of anything or like it was important until now. And now I understand why God did everything he's done to lead me up to this point so I could become strong enough in my faith to share this message, to be the guy that goes, you know what, I'm blowing the whistle on the whole damn thing. And I have been. And it turns out with social media and everything, the rise of narcissistic women are obviously it's blowing up.
Huge.
But that starts with, that comes from decades of weak men.
What do you think made the sister that doesn't like you come save you?
I don't know what else it would be. Just timing. Has to be Yahweh. What else would it be besides
Did you guys
God?
speak about it in that car ride back?
Well, a little bit. We were just starting to open up a little bit. And now I look and see her every day, and I get to pick up the boys from school and say, like, I love her to death. Like when I left,
beautiful.
When I left Sterling, Illinois, I left at 20, and I blamed Sterling and all the people in it for all of my problems, and I've hated it my whole life. And I was literally the prodigal son returns after 40 years. It's so wild. I was forced to go back to my hometown, and I have never been happier in my whole life. I get to see my mom every day, which I have never seen her in 21 years. I get to see my sister every day. I'm walking across the gym parking lot and I see old best friends. When you're
incredible.
It's incredible what God will do to you when you surrender. And now I have this opportunity to what's going to be able to go all over the world and just spread this message and really just love on men, dude.
Marshall, you are not meant to take your life.
Yeah, thank God. I'm never going to try again.
You
I'll
are
tell that.
not meant to take your life, Marshall. I think it would be a tragedy for your soul to have to come back and do this shit all over again.
Yeah, it's not happening.
You're so far into it 100%. In this lifetime.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we did talk about our plant medicine journeys.
Yes.
So I know that I don't take my life. Man, I hate to say it, but I know that I get killed. Like somebody kills me. I know that for sure. And it's something either shot or stabbed right here, which will come in time, I'm sure, with some kind of persecution. But I don't die like in a plane crash or like a car crash or something like that. Like I'm persecuted for something. And hopefully it's not anytime soon. But I just know that I don't die from taking my life. Like nothing like that happens. So, yeah, that's a whole different conversation. But
that's a whole different conversation. Let's go into that. How do you think plant medicine journey opened up your mind?
Bro, it changed everything. So I'm traveling around San Diego. I'm building this false identity of, being a top paid speaker, making all the money, but something wasn't right. So January 2019, I started to get this really bad pain in my stomach. And I think I'm dying of cancer for sure because I'm a hypochondriac, just so everybody knows. I always think that I'm dying of something. So I think I'm dying of something. And my real good, one of my best buddies, and I really wrecked it with him. Larry, if you see this, bro, I love you and I miss you. Like, I'm sorry, dude. Like, I'm sorry. This is 5 years ago. I'm sorry. I love you. My best friend at the time, he was going to a business mastermind in Thailand. And he had just started microdosing with plant medicine with psilocybin. Okay. And he's telling me about it. And I'm like, bro, I'm never going to take that stuff. It'll wreck my brain forever. I was right. So we fly out to Thailand. We go to this 7-day business mastermind, speaking at, crushing it. Okay, cool. I'm not a logistics guy. Thank you, Connie, for everything. That's not me. Like, oh my God, thank you. I had to check into my hotel and was freaking out. But Larry took care of
the best.
The best. So I'm checking out. So the 7-day business mastermind's over. I think that we're flying home, and Larry's like, "No, I got us 3 days at this island. We're going to do mushrooms." I'm like, "You motherfucker!" So we go to this thing, and I take this. I go into the journey. It's about 11 o'clock in the morning, and first off, I thought I was dying for the first hour.
Oh yeah.
My body is so heavy, I literally can't even pick it up, and I'm just in fear, dude. And then eventually something starts to kick in, and the best way I can explain it to people that are watching that haven't been on a plant journey. I didn't have a relationship with God at the time. This is the first day I ever met him. I was God and me simultaneously having a conversation with each other. Both, I can't even, breaks my brain to try to think about it now, but it was both perspectives simultaneously. So we have this conversation.
Incredible. Powerful.
And basically, he walks me through this little private resort, Koh Phi Phi Island, just off Thailand, this luxurious, private, tiny little resort island. And he walks me through the whole property. And the only way I can liken it to is Mario Brothers 3, the menu stage.
Okay.
And you're like, that's what it was like.
That's so funny.
And so he's bebopping me around and he's showing me all these things that I can be. And at the very, very end of it, which is 5 hours later, he shows me that only thing that matters is that I'm supposed to be playful. He's like, Marshall, nothing else in your life matters but play. And I'm so far removed from this at the time because I'm Mr. Top 8 speaker. I'm Mr. Proving myself. And then he showed me how I die in that moment. And that's how I know. But when I came back, I was broken. And I took a look at my life. Came back into my life in San Diego, took a look around none of this is real. None of what I have built is real. This is all bullshit. All the people I'm surrounded with, I am the biggest fraud in the world. And it was the first eye-opening time that I had the opportunity to choose to get rid of everything. Mm-hmm. So I did. I got rid of everything, left San Diego for 13 years, and moved to the mountains in Montana. And I told you on the podcast, in the mountains, out in nature, is where I started to develop that relationship with God. And I was so tiptoeing around it for the last year and a half, or I guess last 3 years now. But that's what plant medicine did for me.
What kind of discipline did it take for you to be in the mountains by yourself?
Not a lot at all, because I was forced there.
Okay.
I got to the mountains, and there's no internet in Montana outside of the city, and even in the city where I was at, in Kalispell, it wasn't really that good. And so I had to rechange my life because I was Marshall live, and I am live. I called my shot. Live video came out in 2016. I told everybody, watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to build a brand out of nothing. I'm going to become, the video's still online. I'm going to become a professional speaker. I'm going to go from nothing to something. I'm going to show you guys how to do it. And literally, I took my cell phone and social media and live video, and I built out of nothing a multi-7-figure speaking business. And so that was the whole thing. I'm Marshall Live. And so anyways, when I got to Montana, I couldn't do that because nowhere I went had internet signal. So for the first time, my identity was crushed. There was nothing left. There was nothing.
So the Marshall Live, it became Marshall Present.
Well, it actually became Marshall High.
Marshall High.
God, I just couldn't get it out of my system, you guys. So now I'm like rolling around smoking doobies, and but I got sober. I was still smoking, but I got sober.
I think smoking is a little bit different.
Oh, 100% different. Yeah. And actually, I started smoking marijuana. It saved me at a time when I had to pull myself out of that violence and danger I was in, because what for people with ADHD, and you can I'm sure relate. When I smoked, I was focused. And so when I smoked, it was protection because I was able to then push all those people out. But when I got to Montana and I was still smoking, what I realized is there was nothing left. Yeah.
Did you know that marijuana, everyone thinks it's a female energy. It's a male energy.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. It is the father that you didn't have.
Wow.
Correct.
Holy smokes. I can see that.
Yeah.
They got mind blown on this podcast. Okay. I have to unpack that. That's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. I have to think about that. But when I got to Montana, I realized there was nothing left to protect myself from. I had cleared everything out. And so I've been struggling to let go of it for 3 years. And all of this only happened because I let go of that. So I'm not saying that everybody needs to stop smoking. It works for some people.
Right.
But for me, I had to. But that's what marijuana did for me, is it saved me in a way that allowed me to get rid of all my other addictions.
Right.
And when I was in Montana, I didn't know any dealers. And all I had was weed. So I met this girl at a bar. She was a bartender who actually had just gotten sober, and we kind of started talking, and that's how I ended up getting sober. Is I was like, well, when I'm hanging out with you, I'm not going to drink. Why would I want to do that? And 30 days turned into 50, and 50 was 100, and I was like, I like who I am not drinking. And but the grossness of how I got addicted again was I got in that narcissistic relationship, hardcore coke addict, hardcore.
How did you find her? How did you guys meet?
In the gym.
Okay.
She was a business owner, community leader, for all intents and purposes, a real woman. And I was picked by a real woman, and I was like, damn, I don't know why this real woman likes me. And she made me like a man. I mean, really, like I still credit her like, hey, thanks girl. You turned me into the man I've always wanted to be. And so I was sober when I got with her. I'd been 2 years sober at the time. And it was so important because those boys' dad died of alcohol abuse and drug addiction, right? Yeah. And so it was so important for me to be sober. But by year 2, going into year 3, she was never around. She's never home. We never got any time together. And so I kind of started, she's like, what she would say to me all the time is, it sucks that I never got to meet the fun Marshall. And I'd be like, babe, what are you talking about? I'm fun now. She's like, no, you know what I mean? Like the one that got to party and do all the fun stuff. And I'm like, yeah, babe, but like, trust me, you don't want that, Marshall. And she would go in on me all the time. And finally, going into year 3, I was like,
she wanted to break you down.
Yes. And she did. And I can't believe I gave her my sobriety. And so I started drinking again. And sure as shit, as soon as I started drinking, we're drinking 5-6 nights a week. I'm using Coke 4 or 5 nights a week. With the kids around, we're traveling, snorting, doing all the things. And I was hooked.
What a toxic relationship.
Dude, in my life, if you look at my stuff from last year, I've been sharing them online, tubby old, gross, bloated, fat, addicted Marshall. I was spiraling out of control again, which is why I was having those crazy thoughts of wanting to take my life. I mean, I was using cocaine all the time again. She even bought me this little tutor thing for my birthday. It just happened.
I know exactly what that is. That's crazy.
It's crazy. And there are so many red flags we won't even go into, but that being one of them. And so that's why it was so important for me to get sober now again, because it's like everything that she told me I knew I wasn't. And the last thing about getting in shape, the reason I had to get in shape is one, because a week before I left and I didn't know we were going to break up, I was in the gym. I took a picture of myself in the mirror and I was like, yeah, I'm jacked. And she texted me when she saw that and she's like, ha, 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 take off your shirt, fatty. And I was like, why would you fucking tell me that, dude?
What?
And so when I got back, I was like, fucking bet. And so now I got a coach and I was like, I told Raymond, shout out to the online coach. I told the online coach, I said, I want to be all natural, no peptides, no TRT, no supplements, nothing. I want to look better than her. And that's how the whole thing started. And now I do. Looks all tore and I look great and she's probably going to stroke out. And that's probably how my boys come back to me.
That's crazy.
Sorry, Yahweh. She used to say this thing. Oh, God, it just pisses me off because ugh, she's so fake. They're all so fake. But when she tells the story about losing the kid's dad, and I just prayed to God, take him or heal him, take him or heal him, just fix him or take him, God. And that's when she tells the story. And so I'm like, I'm like, God, take her or fix her. Either take her or fix her, because my boys are like, tell me why my 15-year-old just called me 14 days ago at 2:30 in the morning, bawling, drunk, saying how much
14-year-old.
He just turned 15.
15.
Yeah. Bawling.
Oh my God.
She's never home. She was just gone in Vegas at some show for was supposed to be 4 days that turned into 11 days, which I'm sure was some other sugar daddy. Kids are home all alone, no food in the house. I've got neighbors who follow me on Instagram. They're like, I don't even let so-and-so go over to the house anymore. The cops are over there. There's all these crazy things. The youngest comes over, tells me there's no food in the house. He doesn't want to go home anymore.
What can you do about it?
So this is the cool thing, is that when I found that out just a little over 2 weeks ago, when this neighbor told me on Instagram what's going on, I just broke down crying. It was on a Sunday. I didn't know what else to do. So I just ordered Uber Eats and sent it to the house. And,
Good for you, man.
yeah, dude. And so, my youngest hit me up on Snapchat, because the oldest, he's really been poisoned against me. And so it was hard for him when I left. He was very, very mad. And so I wanted to make sure the food got there. So I texted the youngest one on Snap, and I was like, hey buddy, I got some food coming to the house. Just make sure you get it. And don't tell your mom, because I don't want her to be mad. And he texted me back. He's got the sweetest heart. And he's like, thank you, but please don't do that anymore unless you tell mom, I wanted to say thank you in the beginning. Okay, bye. And so
my
I
God.
go to bed that night, and I'm freaking out that I shouldn't have done that. One of my followers is like, oh, be careful that she doesn't get a restraining order against you. So I go to bed that night thinking oh man, I shouldn't have done that.
Bro, you're trying to feed these kids,
I'm trying to feed the
bro.
kids, dude. And so so it's 2:30 in the morning. I haven't been sleeping since I stopped smoking. I wake up at 2:30 always. And then if I do go back to sleep, I have nightmares. I mean, nightmares for 3 hours. But I wake up at 2:30. This is 2 weeks ago. And I look at my phone, and the oldest texts me. And he was just like, thank you, thank you. And so I text, he's like, oh, he said, I miss you. I just wish that I wish you hadn't put mom in such insane credit card debt and left us. And so I was like, all right, bet, bro, I'm going to tell you the story. And I still to this day don't talk shit about their mom to them. I would never. When she would be gone traveling, when we were together, it would just be us three boys. And they would say things like, what if mom never came back? Or what if she died in a plane crash? We would be okay, wouldn't we? And I would immediately put a kibosh on that. Boys, don't say that. You don't mean that. And your mom doesn't mean to be the way she is. She loves you very much, which is bullshit. But her actions do not prove that. So anyways, I get the text message, and finally I just text him back. I'm up at 2:30. I'm balling. I just text him everything. This is what she's been cheating on me. This is all the money she took. This is the money she took from her partners. This is everything she's done. I'm sorry to tell you, bro. This is what's going on.
Wow.
So he calls me up right after that. And the one phone call that I've been wanting to get for so long. So thank you, God. And so I have this conversation with him for 40 minutes, and he's crying on the phone, and he feels like it's his fault, because he's like, you and mom used to fight over that, because I gave them structure and discipline, but I'm always very fair, and they missed that. And so now that the house is running
boys love order and discipline. They need it.
The house is running rampant. It's a house of ill repute, and he's crying and telling me how much he misses me. He's like, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have done that. I purposely turned you and mom against you just so I could get my Xbox back.
Poor child.
I saw him on Snapchat a couple days ago, or a couple days before that, trying to sell his Xbox. And I was like, why is he trying to sell his Xbox? So when he called me, it made sense, because he's like, I don't even want to play it anymore. He's like, I didn't know. I was like, you have nothing to do with this, bro. And so then he tells me, I'm really sorry. I'm drunk right now. I stole liquor from mom. I go, where's mom at? And she's like, oh, she's upstairs with one of her friends. I'm like, you have school tomorrow. She's like, oh, she said I don't have to go. And he's like, I would be in so much trouble if you were here. I said, you're damn right you'd be in trouble. I said, you'd be grounded for life. He's like, he starts laughing. He's like, yeah, I know. And but he just was crying and just emphatically wanted to know.
Bro, these boys fucking love you.
Dude, 100%. And that's what he kept saying. I love you. I miss you. And he just kept saying, look, I want to be an entrepreneur like you. I want to speak, and I want to do all the things that we were working on. He's like, if you're ever in Montana or even close to Montana, can you just maybe stop by and see me for a few minutes, And so,
you're gonna make me cry, bro.
Yeah. And so, I miss my boys so bad every day, and I can't even stand it.
What can you do?
There's nothing I can do besides become the greatest version of myself. And so that one day that they can hopefully find me, and they'll know that their dad never gave up on them. They'll know that their dad never left them. And it will happen or it won't. And that's what I try to preach to these men who are going through it. I'm like, bro, there's nothing else. Everybody believes her. Nobody believes you.
That's crazy.
The courts don't believe you. There is literally nothing else you can fucking do besides become the greatest version of yourself. And in that, and then wait. And if it's meant to be, if it's meant for me, it's meant to be. And so what can I do? I can do nothing besides what Yahweh has put on my heart, which is either I'll be a dad one day or I won't be. But I have to be here on Leo's podcast. I have to make that content. I have to do my daily process. I have to hit those 100 burpees a day. I have to do those things because my boys have to know that if the time comes that their dad loved them so much that he went through hell to get back to them. And you'll
always be there for them.
I'll always be there for them, no matter what. And if whether it's my boys or any boys, and that's not just my boys, it's any boys. And it's the same thing I tell these men. Marshall Gillen is nobody. I have laid down my life in service of Yahweh to be a walking, living sacrifice in the image of Yeshua, to be this man, to show people what's possible, because I don't know what else to do. And, and that's all I think about every day. I downloaded pictures, and maybe I'm ruminating on the boys. I don't think so. I just know what they're going through because I was that boy. And I know what they're living in because I lived with them for 3 years while they went through it. And now to know that they're going through this hell, and it's not just them, how many kids, how many men have lost their sons and daughters, and they're living in these relationships. And so, anyways, I didn't mean to get all emotional, but
no,
that's
please.
the thing.
Are you guys still in communication? That's the last time you spoke to them.
No, I haven't talked to either of them since. I am going to be at the beach tomorrow at some point, and I am going to take a picture and text him, and because he wants to live in Florida so bad, and just let him know, like, hey, Dad got an opportunity to be flown down to Florida, and I'm at the beach thinking about you. And so, wish you were here, buddy. Yeah.
Can I give you a hug?
Yeah.
Give you a hug, bro. I'm very proud of you, man.
Thank you.
I'm very, very proud of you. You are a very, very, very honorable, strong, dedicated, driven individual. Marshall, you are here for a reason.
Amen.
You have touched and will continue to touch so many lives.
I believe that. And we can end the podcast with this. None of it is me. All these words, all these actions, none of them are me. Marshall Gillen trying to do it on his own, fucked up for 40 years. When I surrendered my life to God and decided to try to become a walking image of Jesus, whatever that meant, nothing to do with religion, to live as Christ, this. So none of these words are mine, and I appreciate that. But again, it's not me. None of it is. I get clear. I stay clear. I wake up every morning to become a living sacrifice in his name, and the rest is taking care of itself.
You're an incredible human being, bro.
I cannot tell you how much I appreciate the opportunity to share all this. You're the first one. You're the one that's Leo, the one that I told you when we started. If it wasn't for your message, I don't know if all this would have been that strong, because you were the spark in the dark that I needed, something to work towards. And to be able to share with my audience, I'm going down to Florida has given me purpose in a way that, I know you bang these out and your podcast is amazing. And I watch your guests and they have massive followings and they're doing massive, awesome things. And I'm not being dismissive of you inviting me here, but I'm saying, I know it's just a podcast, right? But this has changed my life. And because you saw that in me and you're out there on your balcony smoking a joint and invited me, because of that, I'm going to be able to touch millions of more people. And so I just, again, will say to the people that are watching, and we said this on the live, that thing that you want to talk about, that you don't understand how big of an impact that might have on somebody else. 100%. So just get started and share your story.
100%. I think there are no coincidences.
Amen.
We were brought together for a reason.
Let's go.
And I know for a fact, you and I together are going to do great fucking things together, bro.
Let's go, dude.
Bro, I want to know you for the rest of my life.
You will. And I know you for the
You
rest
are
of my life.
such an incredible person, man.
I love you, bro. Yeah, it's exciting to get to know your
Super
story,
excited.
dude.
You brought me to tears.
Well, I hope that was a good thing.
100%. Because bro, you're so raw. You're so real. Your emotions flow through you and flow through me. Bro, whatever I can do for you, I will always be there for you.
I love that. Thank you so much, brother. Maybe you can help me, teach me how to start a recovery business, an addiction, the houses, or whatever you did with the autism.
Let's figure it out.
Let's figure out how I can.
100%. Let's figure it out. Whatever I can do, I'm there.
Awesome, man.
Marshall, where can people find you?
Literally, I'm on every social media platform at Marshall Gillen. I'm a regular ass dude. Like, I don't want anything from you. So if you saw me or heard me on this podcast, like, literally just reach out and say, hey, what's up, dude? I heard you on the podcast. And I'll be like, what up, dude? But at Marshall Gillen on every platform.
Incredible. Please leave a message to anyone struggling, anyone that is at any point where you've been.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
Your message. That thing that's happened to you that you think that nobody will understand or that everybody will judge you for, that biggest mess in your life. And it's a micro and macrocosm of, I mean, it could be today, it could be a big overarching story, literally anything. Like that mess, that thing that you recognize that's happening to you, if you can learn how to share that vulnerably and powerfully, it can become a message. My tagline and mission statement since 2016 has been the same. I'm on a mission to save 1 billion lives who save 1 billion lives with the power of vulnerability and storytelling. So just get vulnerable. Surround yourself with mentors who can help you stand on the shoulders of giants and turn that mess into a message and watch how Yahweh starts to work through you.
If you're not ready to run through a fucking wall,
let's go.
You have not been listening, bro.
Let's go.
I don't know what the fuck is wrong with you.
That's funny that Pete, that you say that. That's literally that's like verbatim what people say after they hear me. It's like, I'll run through a wall right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? If I was,
that's how I feel.
I'd run through a wall.
I'm trying to break through a wall right now.
Let's go. Well, I think we did break through some walls.
We did, 100%. 100%. Marshall, thank you so much.
I appreciate everything, brother.
God bless you. I wish you nothing but the best. You are such a success, and I cannot wait to see what you do next.
Thank you.
Thank you. Guys, go follow Marshall, please. Go say hi to him. DM him. Like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and we'll see you guys next time.